So welcome to our DigitalU webinar today. Today's topic is Dominate Any Database in 5 minutes or less. And just a real quick overview of the interface we're using before we go into the presentation. If you would like to ask a question during the session, please go ahead and raise your hand. You will find your raising of the hand right here on your board, and you just click it and your hand will be raised, and then we can call on you to ask your question. Or if you prefer to type it in chat, there's a chat box down here, so you can go ahead and type in your question, and then I will be monitoring the chat and asking Joanna the questions throughout the webinar. And when you activate your mic, if you want to talk and ask a question, you just click on talk one time. Best practices is when you're done talking, please go ahead and turn your mic off. We have a limited number of microphones available. And most of the activity that you will see will be happening on the PowerPoint. So it's my pleasure today to introduce to you our presenter, Joanna Miller from Multnomah County Library. We met briefly at the Oregon Library Association, Washington Library Association Conference, and she agreed to come and do this as a webinar. So thank you, Joanna. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. This is going to be Dominate Any Database in 5 minutes or less. My name is Joanna. A brief background on this presentation. It was originally in Multnomah County Library Reference Training Team had a class called Databases 101 for incoming reference staff, librarians, and paraprofessionals, where we would just go over the 5 databases that we used the most. Staff wanted training in more databases. Multnomah County Library is lucky enough to have about 150 plus subscription databases, and there was no way we could train them all. So we decided to think more about designing a class to give staff the skills to get to know any database on their own, to empower them to explore and share with their colleagues and patrons. We now do a new version of Databases 101 that's 3 hours long. It includes collaboration and hands-on practice time. And then we also do Databases 201 that reviews the skills and explores some of the less popular but really great databases we have. Obviously today we don't have 3 hours, and we're not going to be able to be quite as interactive. So this is going to be a very abbreviated version and less hands-on. But I do want to make sure that we hit on all of the main points. We'll be looking at a few different databases as well. We'll be using screenshots instead of looking at them live. And I will try to give you some time to look at things before I start circling them. So let me know at any time if you have any questions. And then we'll have more time for questions at the end. So a little bit about the goals here. By the end of an hour, you will have the knowledge and skills to quickly and successfully get acquainted with any reference database resource, even when a patron is hovering over you, even if you've never looked at a database before. And then the second part, we will talk about how to translate your skills into formal and/or informal trainings for your colleagues. We're going to show you how to make it happen at your organization, even if you have very few training resources, which sadly many libraries do. So a quick introduction to why it matters, why databases matter, why being comfortable with them, knowing how to use them matters. Part of it is just part of a reference transaction, is to recommend, interpret, evaluate, and or use information resources to help others to meet particular information needs. Also to publicize our library resources. We pay, and by extension then our patrons pay, a lot of money for these subscription databases. We want to make sure people know that they are there and how they can be used. And teaching information literacy. the set of skills needed to find, retrieve, analyze, and use information. As modern libraries, we don't just give people answers, we teach people how to find and evaluate reliable sources of information. So how are we defining database? As a storage and retrieval facility for information. The information is arranged in a particular way so that you can retrieve it using specific access points. The database that I know I use the most on a daily basis, and probably a lot of other people do, is a library catalog. Access points in a library catalog are things like title, author, subject headings. So let's start with part one, the knowledge and skills to quickly and successfully get acquainted with any reference database resource. There are three things to keep in mind every time. The first is you don't need to rush if you communicate with your patron. Given how busy we get and how much we think people expect instant information, we tend to just forge ahead. This makes us anxious. It makes us more likely to make mistakes or overlook something. Most of our patrons are going to value accuracy and thoroughness over speed. In the information age, people don't come to us for quick answers as much as correct info and sources beyond what they already know how to do on their own. So the key is communication. Talk your patron through your process. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how much time it might take. If it's going to take a while, check if there's a way to follow up with them. It's just really important to keep that communication going and let them know if it's something new. This is a new database. I want to take some time to look at it with you to make sure we find what you need. Second thing to always remember is do a reference interview. It doesn't matter how good your research skills are if you haven't taken the time to make sure you understand what your patron needs and wants. Before you start typing, as tempting as it is to just go right into search, take the time to talk with the patron, ask questions, really listen, get a sense of what they are really looking for, because sometimes they don't even know. And third, and probably the most important one, read the whole screen. We have a tendency, because we spend so much of our time skimming screens for the most important things, we tend to go right to the center or right to the top. But often if you take just 30 seconds to look at the entire screen, top to bottom, left to right, you will notice a lot that wasn't there before. It seems obvious, but we all are used to multitasking and working fast, and we tend to miss this. I will also say I have learned that read the whole screen is kind of a great philosophy for life. I have started to read signs much more often and found that surprisingly I get lost less. So anytime you open a new database, or new to you, there are 4 features you want to look for. This is the first thing you want to do. This can seem tedious and hard to do with the patron in front of you, but it introduces you to the basics. It makes you slow down and pay attention for a couple minutes, and it will save you time in the end. 4 features to look for. The first one is help. Sometimes this is shown as a question mark or something else. Help will often exist in more than one format. You'll see FAQs, tutorials, quick tips. Now we're getting a lot of videos on databases that give introductions or help. The second thing you want to look for is a list of subjects or terms. This can exist in a variety of formats. Look for words like browse, thesaurus, related subjects. Sometimes in a database you need to do an initial search before you can find this list. And occasionally, particularly in some specialized databases, you won't find something exactly like this at all. But looking for it will give you a sense of how the database is set up. The third thing to look for is an advanced search and or other search interface options. And the fourth is tools to limit or modify your search. Look for words like limit, modify, see also, related searches, date range, and this is another one where often you will find more options once you do an initial search. So let's look at some databases and start looking for the 4 things. We're going to start with Health and Wellness Resource Center. This is a Gale database. Ordinarily, the first thing we would do, of course, is read the whole screen. I could not fit the entire screen on the slide, so we are not going to be following our own advice today, but you just imagine that you can see the rest of the screen. We're going to work with what we have here. Let's start by looking for the 4 things, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time to look for each one. The first is going to be a help section. So it looks like up in the upper right, we have help, but we also have search tips and a guided tour. So we have a few options for help there. And let's look for the second thing, a list of terms or subjects. It looks like there are some possibilities up at the top on these tabs. We have things like diseases and conditions, drugs and herbs, or down here. So this could definitely be bring us to lists of terms and subjects. In a minute we will do a search and see if we get more options. And then the third thing we look for is advanced search and or other search options. Give you a second to look at the screen. Looks like we have advanced search here, and also an advanced search tab at the top. Looks like there are some more search options on the green search bar here, and probably more of those gray tabs up at the top will give us more options for search. So the fourth thing is tools to limit or modify your search. I'll give you a second to look at that. So it looks like here under the search box we have some options to limit to full text articles, rough read publications, consumer health, and articles in Spanish. But let's see if we can find more options by doing a search. So we are going to say that we have typed in a search in that search box for diabetes, and here are our results. So now we're seeing more tools to limit or modify. We can limit by format type with these tabs up here. We can also change how we sort. And to go back to our list of terms or subjects for a minute, it looks like over on the left we have related searches. So this is part of a search list we can use. And let's look at the advanced search page because it often has limiters and modifiers. So it looks like in advanced search we can limit again by certain articles. We can limit by date. My guess is that these drop-down menus are going to give us some options. So we've taken just a couple minutes and we have a nice introduction to this database. We have some sense of what it can do, how to use it, and we are ready to help our patrons. Let's look at a very different database. Let's go to Novelist Plus. This is an EBSCO database. Novelist Plus is a great example of why you want to read the whole screen. They cram a lot onto the page and they put it in various places. You'll see there's an orange bar across the top that has some options. There's a search box in the middle. Below the search box there are some best-selling books and recommendations. And it looks like I've got some arrows here, so that list can go on and on. Over to the left, we've got some lists, and it looks like even those have tabs and different options for age and genre. And over on the right, we have even more resources and options. So this is a really good example of if you take a few seconds to read the whole screen, you're going to notice a lot of options. And let's start and look for our 4 things. We're going to start with a help screen, or help options. And I'm seeing help up here. And also how to use Novelist. And since a few people just got here, I'm going to go back really quickly to the 4 features to look for and give you an idea of what we're looking for here. Looking for a help screen, a list of subject or terms, advanced search and or other search interface options, and tools to limit or modify your search. And we want to do this whenever we first open up a database. Any questions on the 4 things before we go back to Novelist? All right. Oops. Okay. Here we go. So we've looked at help, and it looks like it exists in 2 forms on here at least, which is nice. List of terms or subjects. See up here on the orange bar, actually have something called subjects and appeals. That's promising. So let's see what happens if we click on subjects and appeals. And it looks like we do in fact get to an A to Z list of subjects. You also see up here select type. That drop-down menu includes ways to narrow down the subject list to genre, storyline, pace, tone, and writing style. So again, a lot of options. Let's go back to that front page. And let's look for advanced search and other search interface options. We have advanced search here. And it looks like there might be some other options for searching over on the right here. And tools to limit or modify. Up in the search box, we have which we can narrow down our search. We also have over on the left the recommended reads lists, which are limit or modify. Let's look at advanced search and see if there are more options there. So when we click on advanced search, we see a lot more ways to limit our search. Can limit by audience, Lexile reading level, grade level, number of pages, author's nationality, cultural identity, gender, Dewey range search, document type. A lot of limiting options here. So now let's look at a search results page. We search for the word travel. Then once again, we see more limiting options over on the left here. We can limit by things like genre, storyline, tone. We've got the tabs up here so we can limit our results to series, authors, lists, and articles. We've got more options on the right here. We can limit our results by audience, by fiction, nonfiction, reviews, award winners, publication dates. So a lot of limiting options in this database, though to find them you often have to go into a search and see more options. Any questions on Novelist? Okay, going ahead here. We're going to go to opposing viewpoints and context. This is a Gale database, one of my favorite databases to recommend to kids who are doing homework. Let's start by looking for help. Can anybody find a help screen or a help option? And go ahead and type it in if you find it. There's home, there's the search box, there's some suggested topics. So this is one of those databases where more or the down arrow below search. Good options. As it turns out, because we can't do it live, I can't show you. It turns out, though, that it is neither of those. Anybody else have a guess?
I'm going to jump in here for just a moment. We do have an application sharing feature if you want to pull up your own browser to share this stuff with.
Okay, I think what Jennifer had told me was that because they're subscription databases, that might not work.
It wouldn't work with our web tour at all. But it will work with application sharing, which just takes a picture of what's on your screen and just sends them over fast enough to kind of make it look almost like a video live movement.
Oh,
we can try that if you'd like. Let's finish up this particular database, and then if you want, we can give that a couple minutes. Jennifer, do you think that'd be all right?
Yeah, no, sorry, Joanna. Jeremy's the technician, so we can give it a try with his support if you want.
Sure, yeah, we can look at a couple more after this. That'll give us some options. Let me show you on this one. It turns out it is resources. Why they gave it a name that people will not recognize, I'm not sure. It's one of those cases of database thinking they're being helpful and not being helpful. But let me show you what we get when we click on resources. We get help of various kinds under various names. So this is one of those that pays to look at the whole screen and just try things out.
Just let me know when you're ready to test out the application sharing. So I was about to say, sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. Should we go ahead and do that?
If folks don't mind just taking a moment to set that up, I'd love to. Just go ahead and pull up your web browser to the next database you intend to share. Sorry for the quick change in scenery here, everyone. This button here in the interface, right above, will take you to the application sharing, and then you can select your web browser in the window that appears there. Now, the Illuminate interface itself will most likely hide when you're doing this, so be aware of that. Mm-hmm. It's expected, and it should show up for everyone else. We'll see your browser window. So go ahead and give that a try.
Okay, let me get in. How's that?
It looks good.
Seeing that?
The little bit of the Illuminate window that's left, can you minimize that? It shows a gray square over the browser otherwise. Perfect. Can everyone see the browser window showing? Excellent. I think we're good to go.
All right. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Now we can look at the whole screen. Take this all the way down to the bottom. We are back to list of terms or subjects. And I'm going to go ahead and see the word browse. We're going to go to browse issues. And then we have a full A to Z list. We can also narrow it down by category. Let's go back to home. Advanced search. I think we have it in tiny letters here. And then we also have some other, looks like some other search options here, maps and curriculum standards. We can see what the options are. Okay, and tools to limit or modify. A little bit up here at the top by the search box, but let's go back to advanced search and see if it gives us more options. So now it looks like we can limit to full text documents, peer-reviewed journal. We can limit by document type, and it looks like there are many to choose from. Cartoons, circus review, and the content type. And I guess our boxes up here will give us even more options. Search by company name, person name. Let's go down. Content level, lexile range. There's a lot of limiting options there. And let's go ahead and go into a particular issue. Health insurance. And here we see even more limiting options. You can limit by type. And here we also see our tools. And we can scroll down. So let's an interactive map. There are videos. And also we have related topics. So again, more subject headings to look at. And let's look at one more for the 4 things before we go on. This is ProQuest Historical Newspapers. This is the New York Times from 1851 to 2009. Let's start by looking for help. Looks like it's up here, but they also have a category here called Want to Learn More, which gives us some options. And it looks like a search tip. And a subject or topic list. Where things get interested. Let's look in the advanced search. So here we have the search subject area. And we're going to go back to that in a second. We're in the advanced search, so we've got that. There are also some other search options up here. Got a bunch of limiters here. The New York Times Historical gives us, and talking about a subject or terms list, gives us an excellent opportunity to talk about natural language versus controlled vocabulary. Natural language, language as it is already being used. When you're searching for natural language, you're usually searching the title of a book or an article. You're searching the full text. Controlled vocabulary is vocabulary that imposes order, things like subject headings. Once you find a term, you can find all groups under it. A coworker refers to controlled vocabulary as one of the most beautiful and annoying innovations in librarianship. And I tend to agree. It is wonderful, but it can be a pain to figure out that the word you are looking for is cookery. So that has been changed. That's exciting. So why does it matter to know? If you can get a sense in a database whether they use natural language or controlled vocabulary or both, you're going to be able to do a smarter search. Often database won't spell out for you which that it uses. The New York Times is a great one to look at because the New York Times Historical, in fact, does not have a controlled vocabulary. There are not subject headings for the articles. So this matters because, for instance, if you wanted to look at articles on World War I that were written during World War I, we can see here if we look at publication date over on the right that we don't seem to be really getting much of an article until the 40s. We really do in the 50s. And that's because World War I was not called World War I during the war. They did not know there was a second one coming. And so if we want using natural language to find articles written about the war when it was happening, we need to know what they were calling it then. So if we type Great War, suddenly we're getting our biggest results between 1920 and 1929, also 1910 to 1919. So since, again, a database will not always tell you which of these it uses, this is a good reminder that it often takes more than one search. Do a search, and if you're not getting the results that you want or that you expect, try something else. If you have a few minutes and the patron's not standing in front of you, a few more things that you can do are look for features for sharing, saving, printing, etc. It looks like, for instance, the New York Times has email, print, export. You can save searches. You can export in a variety of ways. Take some time to do some searches and look for what can it do that's really cool. This is kind of a fun one. Let's go back to opposing viewpoints for a moment. If you go into an article on opposing viewpoints, you have the option to have the article read to you. Also, you can have it translated into one of many documents, or sorry, one of many languages. Health and Wellness Resource Center, which we looked at, has some great health assessment calculators for people to use, and also videos on health topics. Novelist Plus has great concise intros to literature genres and subgenres. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite works. So the National Geographic Virtual Library, which is also available through Gale, has something up here called term frequency. When they first rolled out the database, it was called graphing tool. And I have to admit, the first time that I opened this database, I completely ignored that because I thought, why would I need to graph anything? The second time in, I decided to take a couple more minutes to explore and clicked on it and got to this, which is now called term frequency, which makes a lot more sense. This will search for a term and graph it over the years. You can narrow it down by content type. And let's just see what happens if we... So not only do we get a sense of how much the word radiation has appeared in National Geographic issues throughout the years, we can click a point to view results or click and drag to zoom. So for instance, if we have 4 documents in 1943, click and start to get more information. So if you can take the time to look for those things, I geeked out on this option for weeks and was telling everyone about it, whether they wanted to know or not, because I just thought it was so cool. And we're going to go back to the slides now. So I'm just looking over the questions because I didn't have them up before. Controlled vocabulary cross-referencing is used while natural language searches do not. Is that correct? Yes, natural language is not going to, you're not going to cross-reference the same way because often there aren't things used. Having said that, though, if you search by natural language, you can start to see words that come up that might be keywords, and that can help you look for more either through natural language or controlled vocabulary. Okay, Jeremy, how do I go back to the slides? Thank you.
That's about where we were, correct? Or one more on?
Correct. No, that's perfect.
I honestly just randomly picked a slide out of that set.
That was very impressive. We are going to get to part 2 of this training, and that's how you can translate skills into formal or informal trainings for your colleagues. I can assume that most libraries have the problem that there's always so much to learn, and we never have enough resources. We never have the money, we never have the time, and so trying to find a way to do that. And one thing is to, most important thing is to make learning ongoing. Make talking about information resources part of your library's everyday culture. Again, we're adding resources all the time. Information is being thrown out into the world all the time. Learning these things is not a one-time only thing. It's a daily occurrence. I'm curious, do any of you feel like this is something that happens already in your organization? That you have made information resources kind of part of your everyday culture? Let's see a couple of people. Looks like we are a long way from that. Anyone else want to weigh in here? I can tell you, my organization, it is an ongoing struggle. Let's see, repeat the question. Do you feel like in your organization, you have been able to make talking about information resources part of your library culture? Of course, absolutely wonderful. Prison buildings and questions come up. No, people are freaking at the implementation of Office 2013 today. It will be okay. Well, let's talk about how we can make this happen as more a part of your everyday culture. I am a big believer in peer-to-peer training, not just because it's something that you can do with little or no money. I also think it just works better. You can share the workload. There's a lot of flexibility. Staff knows what they need. People tend to know sort of what they want to learn, what their patrons need, what they use. It helps create buy-in and empower your staff to take control of their own learning goals, and all of us to take control of our learning goals. And people learn by teaching. The best way to learn a skill is to actually take the time to teach it to somebody else. So, suggestion for implementing informal peer-to-peer training. Decide that each member of your team is going to make a certain commitment. It can be 15 minutes a week. It can be an hour per week. It can be an hour per month. I do think you want to make it at least monthly. It should be a regular thing. And each person is going to spend that time perusing a database or other reference source. And then part of their responsibility then is to share an introduction to that database or reference source with their colleagues, either in person or electronically, to make it a part of each person's work plan to spend time exploring resources and sharing them with their colleagues. So some ways they can share staff meetings, quick huddles before opening, sending an email to colleagues, if you have a staff blog, using that. You can use your public website. We found that patrons are usually really excited to learn more about reference resources. Use social media, make videos for each other, post something on a bulletin board in the staff room if that's what works best for your group. But again, make it a regular occurrence and make it something that everybody does. And here's what you want to share when you do this. A one-sentence description of the database. If your library has a Twitter account, thinking in terms of how would I describe this in 140 characters or less can be very helpful. And then the second thing is, why would you use it, or what kind of questions could it answer? The third is, what's one particularly cool feature it offers that gives you time to dig a little deeper? And number 4 is, how can you and your patrons access it? I'm going to give an introduction to this, talk about one of my favorite databases, which is Library Press Display. It provides, so number 1 was the one-sentence description. It provides instant access to current issues of 1,700 newspapers from 92 countries in 48 languages. Why would you use it? I can think of 4 main reasons. One is to read your hometown paper, ads and all, whether you are from somewhere on the other side of the world or from a tiny town in Iowa. There is a good chance that Library Press Display is going to have your newspaper. It's a great way to practice language skills. When you are learning a new language, newspapers tend to not be at too high a reading level. It's a great way to get a feel for a place you are about to move to or travel to. I got to help a patron who was looking for travel books for Ireland find the paper for the town she was going to be staying in, so she could kind of get a feel for it and see what was going to be going on while she was there. And it's a great way to research the issues being talked about worldwide. It is only most current issues, and so it's a great way to do a large search for how is the world talking about a certain person or a certain issue. Particularly cool feature it offers, it is all full PDF scans that are searchable, and makes it easy to print custom areas or full pages. You can email articles. It also has it set up so it's easy to post them to certain blog programs. And how can you or your patrons access it? It can be accessed online through the Multnomah County Library website with a library card number and password, or it can be accessed inside a Multnomah County Library location by anybody, card or not. I never get sick of talking about Library Apprentice Display. So there is something to be said for more formal trainings as well. It's really nice to have the time and space to collaborate with colleagues and have hands-on practice rather than just sort of constantly being on the fly. So if you're going to make that happen, here is what we found that you need, sort of at a minimum. You need the time, 1 to 3 hours, including hands-on practice time. You need space. That you can be creative with that, especially if you have something like laptops or if you can use your library when it is closed. You need 1 to 2 peer trainers. You don't generally, I don't think for things like this, need an expert to come in. What you need is somebody who is a good facilitator and teacher. And one tip is that good peer trainers don't always self-identify. Sometimes the best trainers don't realize that they are going to be excellent trainers. You want to look for the people who are curious, who are constantly helping their patrons, who are excellent communicators and helping their colleagues. You need computers. You don't necessarily need one for every student. If you have a computer for every 2 students, it makes people collaborate in a way that they don't always get to every day on the job, and it also forces them to work on the kind of reference interview skills that you have to develop when you are working with patrons. You need a curriculum, and you want to, you can develop your own, you can borrow from other libraries. I will have my email at the end, and I'm always happy to send out what Multnomah County is working on. And I'd love it if you sent me what you're working on. And you want practice questions. It's really nice to have hands-on time at the end. Whether you write those ahead of time or you have people write them for each other, you want to do something. And so how do you get this to happen if it's not currently budgeted for or a priority? One thing is to make your case. If you can figure out what is easily available and then ask for a little more, think about what you already have. Do you have a space that you can use? Do you have staff that can do a good job of training? And then what do you need? Can you negotiate that you can get in 2 subs for an hour? Can you negotiate that somebody flexes their schedule so they come in early? Can you negotiate so that your boss spends time on the reference desk while the staff is learning? Think about what you can do, make your case. If you can sort of make the case that you already have a lot of what you need, it's going to be easier to get a little bit more. And then one thing I like to remind people, this is fun. Don't forget to enjoy yourself. Most of us went into reference work because we are information nerds. We like to find resources and formats for information, and we like to share them with colleagues and patrons. It's rewarding and it's fun. So don't forget to, take a deep breath and enjoy yourself. This is, getting to do reference work is a great, fun job when we have the time to take a breath. And if you remember nothing else, I remind you of the 3 things to always, always do. Don't rush with your patrons. Take the time to communicate with them. It's okay to show them what you are doing and go over it with them. Do a reference interview every time. Make sure you take the time to know what the patron wants or needs before you jump in and start searching. And again, if you remember nothing else, always read the whole screen. This will save you a lot of time and energy. And here's a list of the databases that we have discussed and looked at, and also my contact information. And are there more questions or comments or suggestions?
Thank you, Joanna. Other questions, comments? Thank you all for attending today. And the archive will be available if you want to go back and review it and share it with others.
And thank you, everyone, for coming. I would love to hear what you are doing at your location. If your library is doing interesting reference trainings of any kind, I would love to hear more. Again, my email is there, joannam@multcolib.org. Always excited to work with other libraries and do better at what we do.